This is episode 1. So I currently have 0 subscribers, and yeah, I know this is going to be a process, but on this podcast, what I hope to do is share the knitting that I'm doing, finished objects and works in progress, as well as showcase yarn from indie dyers. I'll probably be talking about my local yarn store quite a bit. It's called Hands-On Knitting Center, and it is fabulous. It is, I think, pretty unique. It is owned by 13 women, and they have no employees. So when you walk in, anybody that you see is an owner. They're invested in the company, obviously. And the great thing about having 13 owners is that they have all kinds of different strengths and specialties. They have different passions. And so, you know, if you want to learn crocheting, there's a couple ladies that do that. Obviously, almost all of them, if not all, knit. And there's spinners and weavers and felters. So their classes are amazing. And I mention that because even though they're my local yarn store in Redlands, California, because of the pandemic, they've really stepped up their game online. They do all kinds of Zoom classes, tutorials. They have great talks with different yarn companies, and they're just always doing interesting stuff. So I highly recommend that you go check them out. I've heard several people say that all across the country that especially during the pandemic, that they found Hands-On Knitting, and that has become one of their de facto local yarn stores, even though they might live in like Boston. So check out that. I'll put the link down below for their website. And I think I said my name was Gretchen, but I live in Southern California. I have a wonderful husband, been married for 20 plus years. I have a daughter who's a PhD candidate. I have 2 19-year-old twin boys who both still live at home, but are very independent. And let's see, I have 3 dogs. Love them all, of course, but fairly obsessed with my 10-month-old Basset named Delilah Sue. She has her own Instagram. If you love Bassets, she's at Delilah Sue Bassett. And then we got a feral wild cat that my husband grew attached to. It was hanging around his work, and took it to the vet the day after we got it, and she was 10 months, healthy and pregnant. So she, 2.5 weeks ago, had 1 baby. Thank the Lord, only 1. So we now have a cat and a kitten, and we're keeping both. So you'll probably hear some adventures of my animals off and on. I'm also really passionate about cooking. I love to cook. I would say lots of different cultures. I have a pretty big cookbook collection, and so I'll go on, you know, just jags of wanting to cook out of one cookbook or wanting to cook a certain kind of food. I'm really into cooking Japanese food right now. And so sometimes that'll probably come into the podcast. But without further ado, about my knitting, I actually have not been a knitter for very long. I was a crocheter from the time I was 7 until now. I have tried knitting off and on. I had knitted, you know, like a scarf here and there, but just found it to be difficult and found that I wasn't good at it, which I don't like. And about 3 years ago, I started just really wanting to get the results that you can get from knitting. You know, obviously knitted things look a lot different than crocheted things, and particularly for like socks and sweaters and even hats. I just really wanted the look of knitting. So I found my local yarn store, Hands on Knitting, and got mentored by a lot of the lovely owners. Shout out to Molly and Diane and Bridget, who've been so very patient with me. And, you know, then just kind of jumped in. And anytime I said, would this be too hard for me to do? Molly would say, oh no, you can do it. You can just come in for social knitting if you're having any problems. And then, of course, the pandemic happened. So I had about a year where I would go in, but then I had a lot of projects that I kind of got moored and stuck in during the pandemic. I would even drive to Hands on Knitting and like leave my project bag with my shawl. It was like a make-along shawl for the whole year that they do every year. I would leave it on the doorstep, and then they would fix it, and then they would call me and have me pick it up during the worst of the pandemic. So, but it did up my skill level quite a bit because I was forced to kind of learn more on my own. And then I discovered YouTube and the world of knitting on YouTube. It has been revelatory for me. I've loved it. I actually never really was somebody that watched YouTube, and now I watch it probably as much as I watch TV, which is kind of shocking to me. So, my knitting journey, right now I'm kind of obsessed with socks, but I do have lots of different whips, I'm not gonna lie. So, this one I'm showing lots of finished objects because this is my first podcast. But yeah, don't expect that every week. So this is my first pair of socks, and I knit these probably about 4 months ago, I'm gonna say. So Molly again recommended that I do worsted weight the first time, and I've learned to take her suggestions and run with them. And I did the Tin Can Knits rye in the worsted. And so they're fun, they're colorful. I kind of use them as like slipper socks. So I like them, but they're definitely not socks that I want to wear, you know, out and about in my shoes. So my second pair, and I'll start getting better about doing the colorways and where I'm getting the yarn. This is Peekaboo yarn, and the pattern is Austin by Crazysocklady. By the way, if you haven't gone over to the Crazysocklady and looked at her podcast, you need to do that right now. I mean, you can watch the rest of mine if you want. That would be awesome. But yeah, she's fantastic. So these are the Austin socks. I really like the pattern. It was easy. It gave some nice detail. I wear these quite a bit. As a matter of fact, yesterday for local yarn store day, I wore these with some black sandals, which before making socks, I would never have considered doing. But I felt like I was rocking it. I'm not gonna lie. So my third pair of socks was, I'm not gonna say, well, yeah, I'm gonna say a bit of a fail. So these are for my husband. My husband, if you can't tell, it fits up the whole screen, right? My husband is a large man. He is 6'5", and he has size 14 shoes. So I was really worried about making these. They were for his birthday. And so I used Kate Litton, Crazysocklady's vanilla socks as my base pattern. But the largest size that she does is casting on 72, and I just wasn't confident that that was enough. So I cast on 80, which is fine. The reason why I'm saying, oh, and by the way, my husband picked this colorway, not me. It's called Watermelon. You can see why, right? I mean, it's a great summery color, but I never in a million years would have thought that he would have picked this. He also picked the yellow that I did on the toes, heel, and cuff, which I also wouldn't have picked, but you know, hey, we're all different. Um, but the reason why I'm saying that these are a bit of a failure is they're too short. The leg is way too short for him. I think I did now, I mark them with pens, but of course I took that off when I finished. I want to say I did 80 rounds, and honestly, I think he's going to want like 200 rounds. So between a size 14 foot and wanting a really long leg, he is not going to be getting socks very often, maybe once a year. So these are going to be his around the house socks because he says that they're too short for him to wear like underdress pants at shirt. Bummer. Okay, so those are my 3 finished objects that I have to show. Oh, well, I have one more. I don't know that you're really going to consider this a finished object because basically you have to make about 360 of these to finish the whole object. But since each one is individual, I am still going to count them. So these are called Hexie Puffs. How cute are they? I love them. Okay, so it's designed by Tiny Owl Knits. And is it called Hexie Puff? I'm not sure. I'll link it down below. But you use DPNs, and that's these little guys are the first time that I've used DPNs. I kind of have avoided them like the plague. I've used Magic Loop on most of my socks. I'm using 2 circulars on the whip that I'm using right now on socks. But so I had to play around with them quite a bit, I'm not going to lie, before I got the pattern down. But I do have 3 now. Aren't they cute? I'm just in love with these. And I really like, she has like a system where you finish off and then you just pull that last thread into the middle. And so the actual Hexie Puff is completely finished. So I'm sticking with my story that these are finished objects. I get a monthly shipment from row 1. I'll be showing it, I'll be opening it in May when I get it. You get it at the beginning of every month. It's my favorite monthly shipment for sure. They're 10 grams and you get 10, so it's 100 grams total. And each one is individually, well, every month it's from one indie dyer, and then you get 10 different colors from them. So it's fantastic. I'll talk more about it when it comes in. But I'm using those for these, and these take a little less than 5 grams to make. So you can make 2 out of 10 grams. So the thing that I like about this too is that I will always have a finished object to show you because I'll always be able to do at least one of these, right? Okay, so works in progress. I'm gonna confess that I have more works in progress than I'm gonna show today. I think that's true of most knitters. You know, it's so fun to cast on, it's so exciting. And then you kind of get in the middle of it and you might lose some steam, not be quite as excited. Sorry, I'm gonna take a quick drink of water. You know, you're ready for something new or the season's changed. So I'm gonna be casting on something this week that I'll show next week because of that season changed. So the thing that I'm working on the most right now is a pair of shorty socks. These socks are from Denise. She's Earthtonesgirl on YouTube. So I have one finished. Look at this yarn, isn't it beautiful? And so this is the No Fear shorty sock from her. And it's really nice. This is the first shorty sock that I've done. And I'm like, oh, I can see a lot of these in my future, especially since it's heading towards summer. So it's just 15 rows on the cuff. I did a 2x2, that's what it calls for. And then 15 rows of the leg. And then you start the heel flap and heel turn. Slip stitch, heel flap, regular heel turn, and then I do this. This is something that I learned from the Crazysocklady, from Kay Litton, is to put these little lantern markers every 10 rows. So if you do that, it's really easy to count, and then it's easy for you to make your second sock the same as your first sock, which is a nice thing. One of mine are not quite that. But that's okay. It's not such a big difference that you can tell. So I'm on my second sock, and I've completed the cuff and I've completed the leg. And so you can see I'm just on row 9 of the heel flap. And so I have 32 rows of that. So I will be finishing that today probably. Not the whole sock, just the heel flap and probably the heel turn. So that is what I'm working on the most right now. And I'm putting that back in my project bag. This is one of my favorite, probably is my favorite project bag. Isn't that beautiful? It's so well made. It's by chestnut fibers. And like all the little details, look at that little cat. And then even the lining. Okay, look at how cute the lining is. But there's more. Inside, there's a, that's hard to show, a zipper. And even that has a little heart on it. I don't know if you can see that. And then when I got it, inside was a little package of really cute stitch markers. Just really simple. They were, you know, the round stitch markers, and they had just a little colored stone on them. But it was an unexpected surprise, and just kind of made my day. So I love this project bag. I use it all the time. On like chestnut fiber. I'll try to link their shop down below too. And then, oh, I guess this is the last one that I brought. I'm also working on a second pair of shorty socks. Denise, again, Earthtonesgirl, on YouTube has like a whole tutorial class called No Fear Knitting. And if you have knit socks before, it probably goes a little slow. She's very, very thorough. But even if you've knit before, there were some tips and tricks that she did that I didn't know that definitely upped my knitting game. Definitely made these socks look way better as far as not having holes and, you know, the gusset looking really nice than my previous ones. And she also gave this tip about knowing where you are in the round. I'm actually going to show that because I think it is so brilliant. And one of the reasons why I wanted to start a YouTube video is because I am not an expert / advanced knitter. I would consider myself at this point to be a intermediate knitter. And I feel like there's so many great tutorials out there. I would say just for pure technique, my very favorite is Very Pink Knits. She's amazing. And she even has like slow-mo ones and stuff. But I feel like, you know, the super advanced knitters sometimes can't even imagine or remember what it was like to be a new knitter. And, okay, I'm just going to speak for myself. A lot of times I was very frustrated and felt very, like, ignorant and, like, why is this so difficult? Why can't I figure this out? You know, it's just knitting. And then I have since found that a lot of people have felt that way when they're first starting, and they get, you know, it's easy to get overwhelmed. Knitting isn't simple. I feel like knitting is quite a bit more complex than crocheting. I love to crochet, and I, like I said, I've done it all my life, but yeah, knitting is different and more difficult. Okay, so the tip that I got from Denise that I thought was brilliant is when you're knitting in the round like you do for socks, it's really easy to forget which, like, have I done a whole round or am I just halfway through? And so her very simple thing is if your bottom yarn is on the same side as your top yarn, then you were at the beginning of the round. So as you can see, mine is not. And so I would be halfway done with my round. So that just clicked in my brain, and I went, oh my gosh. You know, another thing, this one was one that Molly taught me. I did some inadvertent short rows when I was learning, and I did it more than once. And what happened was that, you know, I was knitting, and then I had to do something else, and I put it away. And when I came back, and I kind of didn't know which way I was going. I thought I did, but I didn't, and I was wrong. So your yarn that's coming from your ball is always on the right. Okay, it should always be on the right. Okay, and so if it's not, then you are knitting the wrong way. So I hope those couple of tips are helpful to new beginners, or even just people that have been learning on their own and maybe hadn't heard that before. Okay, and then my last one that I'm showing is because I just fell in love with this yarn. During the pandemic, Hands on Knitting had several like trunk shows that were just on Zoom, and one of them, so dangerous, was Noro. And it was Noro blankets, actually. And if you know Noro, you know that they're not a cheap brand. They're Japanese, and they're gorgeous. They're vibrant. So this is part of a blanket, a small part of a blanket. So you can see all of the yarn that I'm using is variegated. So, you know, it goes back and forth. And there are seven different variegated yarns that I'll be using. And you have to make 14 rows, and then you seam them together. So this is a long-term project. This is my second strip. So I'm about halfway through this one, and then I'll have, well, I have 12 and a half more to go. And I've been working on this since January. This is kind of I keep this upstairs, and so this is my like nighttime knitting when I really, really don't want to have to count or do anything like that. And sometimes my early morning knitting, but usually I try to do 30 minutes of knitting in the morning, and usually that is more like the socks. So I will be starting a new project. It's going to be a cardigan, and I'm so excited. And it's half, I'm going to get it wrong, it's Trendsetter yarn, and it's half soy and half cotton. Definitely never worked with that before, but I wanted something, you know, I live in Southern California, and so it's really hot here. So I wanted something really lightweight, because even though it's really hot, I've found that I need to bring a cardigan along when I'm out and about, because some of these places keep the air conditioning frigid. And so, you know, when you're going in and out, you know, I wear a lot of tank tops and that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden you go in and you're freezing to death. So that's not good. So I want to have a cute cardigan. I will be showing that next week. So I'm not quite sure which day I'm going to upload. I'll obviously have to edit this and get all the links in and stuff. So I'm thinking maybe on Tuesdays would be a good day. Yeah. And I would love it if you would comment below any podcasts that you love, or I'm always trying to find new exciting yarns, new exciting podcasts. So if you could comment below on either of those things, I would love it. And thank you so much for watching my first podcast. If you have suggestions, and they're nice suggestions, then I would love to hear them. I'm always going to want to improve and obviously entertain and possibly educate. And yeah, I think that is about it for this first one. And thanks so much for watching. If you do like this, I would love it if you would subscribe and even share with your friends. And I will be doing some giveaways and hopefully some collaborations and just making it a really fun space. So take care. God bless.